What is going on, guys? Team Homebrews here, back with another video, and we know that it's been quite some time since we made a video. We didn't make any videos for a long time because we just weren't all that motivated to make new videos. We were more motivated by playing the game. We still play the game. We've been playing the game since we uploaded our first couple of videos since Opus 1. All the way up to Opus I would say about 8, and then we kind of took a little bit of a break for Opus 9. We just kind of, shied away for a little bit, took a little bit of a break, and now we're back for Opus 10. But over the past couple of months that we've been away, I've still been doing deck builds. One of my friends that I still play with has been doing some deck builds as well, because we still do play this game. But I figure, even though we haven't been uploading any videos, I'll share my deck builds with you anyway. A lot of these deck builds are going to be pretty old, but I feel like it'll just be fun to share it with you guys. This deck build is kind of like a villains deck build. I don't really have a name for it. I just call it a villains deck. Usually I come up with a cool deck name for this, but one of the key cards in this deck is Ultimecia. Ultimecia is, I just like the character. I am a fan of Final Fantasy VIII. Ultimecia is just cool. I have this obsession with the character. But anyway, this deck is a villains build, and I run 3 Ultimecias. Ultimecia is not a key card. She's not an ace card in this deck. She's more of kind of like a I would say like a closer. She should be here to end the game for you. This deck is very mid-rangey. It's sort of slow, but I put some cards in here to help with that, to help stall out your opponent while you pick up some steam. Ultimecia, her ability, she has like 3 abilities, and you get to play 2 of those abilities depending on if you have 6 points of damage. You get to select 2 of those abilities. One of those abilities is choose up to 2 characters opponent controls and dull them, or you get to freeze all forwards opponent's controls, or you get to freeze all your opponent's backups. This very works out for you if you're at the end of the game and you want to squeeze in those last points of damage to your opponent, and she helps with all of that. Next, I run 3 Cyphers. This would be the Opus 2 Cipher. Opus 2 Cipher is pretty good. I like Opus 2 Cipher, depending if you have an Adea. This deck does have an Adea, but he is, in my opinion, I feel that haste is very powerful in this game, and the fact that he gets haste plus 3k power is really good. His second ability is just okay depending on what you're going up against. I have a buddy of mine who really likes to play standard units. I have a couple of my friends who like to play standard units. His second ability kind of deals with that. You basically pitch off another version of Cipher, and then you dull 3 lightning cards, and you get to break all 4s that cost 2 or less. This deals with standard units. It deals with the overwhelming numbers of Sky Pirates. I find this card very helpful. It really helps, especially early game, because of the haste. I just think he's good, and he's playable. And I have this thing where I just like Final Fantasy 8 characters. I'm not a fan of the game itself, but because of the story, but the characters I really do enjoy. Next, I'm running 3 copies of Genesis. We all know Genesis. Genesis he's good. He's playable, especially if you're playing Ice. He costs a lot, in my opinion, for the power he has, but he makes up for that with his talent. So when he enters the field, you get to dull and freeze a forward, and every time he attacks or deals damage, to your opponent discards a card. This kind of slows down your opponent quite well. I think Genesis is playable. I enjoy Genesis quite a bit. Next is 3 copies of Sephiroth. This would be the Opus 10 Sephiroth. Opus 10 Sephiroth is how do I say this? He's a defensive card. If my opponent is about to attack me and I want to get in some chump blocks and I don't have anything, he's there for that. That's why he has back attack. I think that Sephiroth, he's a I wouldn't say he's not a powerful card at all, but the fact that he gets even the fact that he enters the field and he gets to dull something is pretty powerful from my perspective. It kind of slows down your opponent, and if you have 5 damage on your side of the field, he gets 2k power. So he's a blocker that flashes into the match, and he's an 8k. That's great. Now, if you have 2 copies of Sephiroth, his second ability is that you get to, until end of turn, he gets 1000 power and first strike. So he's an ultimate blocker that flashes in for 3. I just think he's very, very good. Next is 3 copies of Garland. This is the Opus 7 Garland. I love this Garland. The fact that he is an ultimate blocker is really good. If your opponent blocks you, well, if he blocks something, I'm sorry. If someone attacks you and he blocks, he gets 2k power. So the fact that he's a blocker that's blocking for 9k is awesome. And if he dies, he puts 4000 power to another forward on your side of the field so that they can block, but they're blocking for even more. A lot of people, when they see this, are afraid to attack you. They always want to remove it because they don't want that power to go anywhere. Well, they don't want to lose anything, really, because that power is going to go somewhere anyway. So the only thing that they can do is probably bounce it or use like some type of card that cancels out his skill. Next is 2 copies of Shadow Lord. Shadow Lord he's kind of like that backup tank. He has Brave, but he's there to deal with Sky Pirates, and he's there to deal with standard units. So when he enters the field, you break all forwards that cost 2 or less. I'm assuming, I don't know the ruling on this, but you break all the forwards that cost 2 or less. So I'm assuming that goes for your forwards as well. That's why in my deck, I'm not running any 2 or less forwards in this deck. It's very mid-rangey, it's 3 and up. So that kind of helps with you. But when a forward opponent controls is put from the field into the break zone, choose 1 forward opponent controls and deal it 2k damage, which is a useful skill. And the fact that he doesn't dull to attack your opponent is very helpful, because he helps with that blocking game. Because like I said, this deck is very mid-rangey, so you're probably gonna be really slow. Next, I run 1 copy of Golbez. This is the 8-drop Golbez. This is the Golbez that for every 5 cards in your break zone, it counts to reduce his cost by 1. This deck has you have a habit of dropping a lot of things in your drop zone with this deck, because the deck somewhat works from the drop zone, from the break zone, sorry. And he helps with that. When Golbez enters the field, you choose 1 forward that costs 5 or less in your break zone and add it to your hand. So you can get back your Shadow Lord if you're overwhelmed. You can get back your Genesis if you need to dull something. But what's even better is like if you have your Adea on the field, which is in this deck, I will show it to you. You can just bring back your Cipher, and then bring back your Cipher, give it haste and attack. Golbez is a tech card. He's just there just in case. And the last of the forwards is 3-drop Cipher that searches out for a witch. This Cipher is kind of here to just search for a key card in the deck, and to pitch off for Cypher's ability if you need it. There's it. Shadow Lord. Okay. Now for backups. I'm running 3 copies of Adea, the backup. I prefer this Adea more for this deck than the forward Adea. I just feel like it just works better. I'm not running any of what's her name? Maya, Maida. I don't remember her name, but she's a witch. It came out Opus 10, I believe. I think it's Opus 10, Opus 9, one of those. But I felt like she would be, one, she's too expensive in terms of price. She's a very expensive card. And I don't feel like she works with the deck that I built, even though I'm running witches. So I chose this build instead, and because I have this obsession with Ultimecia. So what she does is, when you break a Dea, you basically search for your Ultimecia at endgame, and you kind of close it out. The fact that she also helps with Cypher's speed is very, it contributes to that. So that's why I run that Adea. Next, I run 2 copies of the backup Snow. I think he's the only hero I have in this deck. Maybe, probably not. But he's just too good to pass up. The fact that every time you attack, you choose a forward opponent controls and you dull it is just too helpful. So I basically just run 2 of those. I feel like 3 would be just too much because there's too many heavy costing backups in this deck as it is. Next, I run 3 copies of the backup EX Emperor. When Emperor enters the field, choose 1 forward opponent controls, and if you have received 4 points of damage, you dull and freeze it. This is to stall out your opponents some more, just to annoy the hell out of them if you're trying to continuously get your board set up. Not I wouldn't say set up, but like close to the. You never want to pull this card too early because you need the damage. But this card is for like close to the end game. It's to help you close out the game. You're just stalling out your opponent. Next is 2 copies of Dr. Sid. Dr. Sid is basically here to help you protect your Adea and your Snow. When a backup you control is broken, by your opponent summons or abilities, your opponent puts 1 character on his field on his or her field into the break zone. So if they want to try to break your Adea or your Snow because it's annoying, they would have to sacrifice something on their side of the field. Next, I run 2 copies of Devout. Devout is, classic card. Basically, you break him, you get something back that costs 4 less from your break zone, and you put it straight to the field. So if you need a blocker, you get your Garland. If you need something to be annoying, you get your Genesis. If you want to, go in for that, fast, quick game ender because your opponent doesn't have any forwards on the field and you don't have any forwards on the field, you break Devout, get your Cipher, go in for haste, win the game. Next, I have 2 copies of Black Mage. This is the Opus 1 Black Mage. Basically, you dull 2 lightning, you break Black Mage, and you take a damage forward and you break it. I like this card. I've always loved this card since Opus 1. Next, 2 copies of Red Mage, just in case you need that extra haste. That's basically what that's there for. 2 copies of Arcanist. Arcanist is helpful, and sometimes he can be extremely helpful. So you take 1 ice and 1 backup of any color, and you dull Arcanist, and you select a number, and all forwards of that number cannot attack this turn. So like if your opponent is pummeling you and you need the next turn to get your board ready, you basically call out a number that keeps punching you in the face, and you say it can't hit me anymore. He's just there to help keep your opponent at bay until you're able to get things ready and situated. Now we're gonna do monsters. There's not a lot of monsters. There's only 3. There's 2 copies of Coriel. Coriel is a monster. When you put Coriel into the break zone from the field, you choose 1 forward until end of turn. It gains 3,000 power, haste, first strike, and brave. So a lot of times you want to give your cards that just hit the field, you want to swing in because the deck is so slow. You want to be able to hit your opponent whenever you can, and the fact that it gets first strike and brave, yeah, I put 2 in the deck just in case. I put 1 copy of Militici Coriel. Militici Coriel is kind of like my bait card. I put him on the field because it costs 0 just to turn into a forward, even though he has 5k, but whenever he attacks, you get to dull something. So he's just kind of there to open up attacks. It forces your opponent into like tough situations, because when if you dull something, if you dull something that they really needed to block with, it forces your opponent, especially if they had multiple monsters, multiple forwards on the field, to do something else. And now for the summons. Now I run two of the 7-drop Odin, because I think he's still good. There's probably better cards. It's been a while since I bought a box. Well, no, that's a lie, because I bought a couple of boxes of Opus 10 and Opus 11. I like Odin. I've always liked Odin. I think he's good. It's only flipping for EX bursts. If he comes into my hand, I'm upset. But he just breaks things. You already know that. Next, which is a pretty classy card, and I love it, is 3 copies of Glossy Bolus. Glossy Bolus is from Opus 5. You get to select 2 abilities out of 4 of them. That's why I put 3 in the deck, is because he has so much value. So when you play him, you get to pick 2 things. So you can do, your opponent discards 1 card from his or her hand, or you choose 1 forward and dull it, choose 1 forward and freeze it, or you get to choose 1 dull forward and deal it 7k damage. The fact that he has so many options makes him valuable for the deck. He just works. And last but not least, I would say that this is a tech summon, but I could think tech summons are just 1-ofs, but this is 2-ofs. Mateus the Corrupt. Mateus the Corrupt, I usually want to flip for damage. A lot of times when my opponent is attacking me while I'm setting up things in my hand and on my board, and I flip this for damage, that forward that's hitting me is going to get killed. So that really helps with all that stuff. So this is the deck. The key cards in the deck are Genesis, of course, Cipher, Ultimecia, and I would definitely say Garland, because Garland helps with the blocking. But these are like the key cards of the deck. I built this deck a couple of months ago, like a while ago, and I kind of like tweaked it here and there when new cards kept coming out. What I tweaked it with was with the Sephiroth, because before, what I had in the deck was Amon, but I always felt like Amon made the deck really slow, like just too slow. The fact that Sephiroth is here and he has back attack makes the deck move at a more efficient pace, I would say. So like a lot of times if I had Amon in my hand, I couldn't really do anything, especially if I got punched in the face. He couldn't do anything. With Sephiroth being here, especially if you got 5 damage, it's a threat, and because it flashes in, it's just too helpful not to put in the deck. So I got this all out of, it's so messy right now. But because Sephiroth flashes in, it just he just makes the deck valuable, and I think he works well. It's almost like haste, but on your opponent's turn. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will be putting up more deck builds. I noticed that since I've been playing this game since Opus 1, I'm more of a theme deck guy. I like to build theme decks that follow themes. I'm not so much of a tournament player. Like I don't compete. I don't know metas. Like I just don't know those things. I just play it for fun because I enjoy it, and I like building decks that have themes. But I will share more theme decks that I have built, because I have tons of them. I have literally tons. And I would share that. I'm going to share that with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.